It's Wednesday, it's 1:30, so that means Girl Talk with Crystal. And I am driving, and I of course don't know where my driving hook is, so I will most of the time not be looking at you, but I really am committed to doing these every week. And today it just so happened that I'm getting my hair did. Asante Happy Healthy Hair is gonna hook me up today, so I'm en route to her. But today's topic is feeling the fields, and this is something that I have been realizing. Hi, Gretchen. This is something that I've been realizing I don't do. And one of the things in the leadership work that I've been doing lately, one of the things that I've learned, that I realize, is that the way we are, by the age 8, your 0 to 8 pretty much makes up who you are, your ways of being. Your subconscious is kind of developed of how you perceive the world. And so then the way you go about doing things in your life come from that lens. And the good and the bad, or what I'm learning in leadership, it's not really about good or bad. It's all about just what your neutral is, and then how people perceive you and how you perceive people. But nonetheless, what I'm getting at is the way you see the world, the way you interact with the world doesn't go away even when you do the self-work. But when you're able to become aware of it, then you stop resisting it and you start to just embrace it. So for an example, one of my ways of being is, as in my 0 to 8, because of the trauma that I endured, I shut down. I created a wall around my heart, around my expression, my emotion, and I figured if I just play safe, if I just keep to myself, if I don't express, for example, I imagine as a little girl, if you're waiting for your dad to come and pick you up when he says he's going to pick you up, or you're waiting for your dad to do something he said he was going to do for you and he doesn't, I imagine after a number of times of being rejected in that, you start to just not expect that anymore. So with a lot of series of events like that, which I've always been I'm not affected by, I don't have daddy issues, I'm not affected by my dad not being there, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is even so sidebar, another self-work I'm doing is energy work. And one of the things that she was saying even today on our session was that even when trauma to a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old or a baby in the womb, trauma to a child is much different than trauma to adults. So when we think back, I think yeah, okay, my dad didn't show up when he said he was, boo-hoo, whatever, my mom was there, we're good. But as a child, that does damage. So my point of all of this is to say that one of my things that I've noticed about myself is I'm not expressive, and I work on that. Even right now, today, I'm conscious of slowing down. I'm still working on this. So slowing down when I talk, speeding up, raising my voice, lowering my voice, putting different expression, being more expressive, which some people find it hard to believe because I'm very I talk all the time, but it shows up in other ways. It shows up in ways of my husband has always told me for as long as we've been together, he always says, you don't show any emotion. Or so he would say it when I got engaged, I just was yeah, I'm getting engaged, yay. I wasn't oh my God, jumping for joy, and I just didn't express myself, right? And a more recent example he gave was my daughter. She was at soccer practice last week, and she's been getting up every morning at 6 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, working out with my husband and training, working on her on running fast. And she was winning all of the races at practice. So when she came home, they were telling us yeah, Giselle won first place, she was winning. And I was oh, cool. And then I just kept talking. So that has other things built into that, not connecting and being fully present to engage and ask more questions. But I didn't express oh my gosh, that's so awesome. And then Jason, my husband, was don't pay attention to mommy. She doesn't ever get excited for anything. So he's told me that time and again, and I would always have a hard time believing him, because I'm like, I'm such an expressive person. Like, I'm vulnerable. I'm always expressing myself because I'm an open book, and I will tell every secret I have. But there's a difference between feeling the feels and being open. So all of this background to say, the example that inspired my choice of topic today is two things. One, I've been working on this a lot. Feedback that I've been getting from my mentors is working on not being monotone and really expressing myself. So when I say, like, I'll never forget one of my best friends. I was talking to her on the phone, and I'm like, I'm so excited that you're coming. And she was like, you don't sound excited, Crystal. And so, like, really, like, I'm so excited. Like, I don't even know if that's how it sounds when you're excited. So finding the line between my authentic being and just that's how I am, and actually being conscious of, am I suppressing an emotion right now because I'm used to hindering my emotions? So the other part of that was a perfect example of it manifesting in my life was when I hired the chef that we hired almost 2 months ago. I was so freaking excited. And I was not going to deny it. I committed in doing this work that I'm doing. I committed to expressing every last emotion when I have it. So if I'm mad, I'm freaking going to be mad. If I'm sad, I'm going to cry. If I'm happy, I'm going to jump for joy and say I'm so excited and I'm going to be happy. And I committed to feeling the feels and being in the emotion. Well, when I hired the chef, I remember she leaving, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening. And I remember almost not allowing myself to be excited about it, because instantly my brain kicked in of well, what if it doesn't work out? What if you get excited, you post about it, you share about it, you tell people about it, and then it doesn't work out? What if? And then sure enough, it didn't work out. And here we are 2 months later, it didn't work out. And so what I'm realizing is how often in life do we go through life living in the what if? And I really remember, I'll never forget when I started seeing this holistic doctor to do work on my gut and get to the bottom of some of the stuff that I had going on. I remember him saying, you live in a state of what if. Even in my marriage, I was constantly why do I need to go through my husband's phone? Why do I worry about what he's doing when he's not with me? Well, I was because I need to be on top of it. I need to see it coming. If he's even thinking about doing something, I need to know about it so I can be prepared. And I remember he told me, and this was years ago, he's like, every second you go through that in your mind, your brain doesn't know the difference between a story you're telling yourself in your head and an actual instance. So every time I'm telling myself in my head, if he's cheating, oh, let me catch him cheating, let me see, every time I'm going in that realm and telling myself that story, my body is having the trauma, period. It doesn't matter if it's actually happening. And I remember learning from another mentor who said all trauma is the same. So whether somebody is stubs their toe or someone loses a loved one, the body doesn't know the difference between trauma, and it's just protection is protection, and trauma is trauma. And so I was really blown away by this. And my point of bringing it up is that I lived in the what if. And my question to you guys, my moral of today's Feel the Feels is, where in your life are you not experiencing life right now? Where are you not being excited? Where are you not embracing? For me, I have the doctor. It took a freaking doctor to tell me, you have an amazing husband. You have a man who is taking care of home, a man who comes home to you happily, a man who takes care of his kids, a man who prays with your family, a man who does all these amazing things, and you're worried about the what if. You're ruining, you're sabotaging your marriage and then he went further and went on to talk about how, because my perception in 0 to 8 of a man, of a father, of a husband, was somebody who's not there, was someone who doesn't take care of their kids, was someone who doesn't respect and honor their woman, their wife, that's what my perception was. That's what I was supposed to be getting, because that's what I got from my first love. So what he said was, you are trying to sabotage to match up what your 0 to 8 looks like and what your reality looks like. And this is when I learned this work. So I've done tons of work. I've done seminars, I've worked with mentors, I've done tons of work. And this concept of what happens in years 0 to 8 will show up and manifest in your adulthood has been across the board the teaching of all of these mentors of basically you will be trapped in your subconscious unless you consciously come to terms with life right now. So like that's where when it relates to my money, I get to feel the feels of I'm not gonna avoid it. Maybe I didn't grow up with money. Like I did some work around money today, and the block that I had was 2 emotions that I trapped when I was 3 years old. 3 years old, I trapped despair and humiliation. Something happened to me at 3 years old that I was humiliated and in despair over money, and I created a block, an energy block that has blocked my abundance and my overflow when it comes to money. And so think about that. Like where are we not feeling life right now? So I get to feel that. I get to acknowledge that just because I experienced despair and humiliation at 3 or at 7 or 10 or 19 or whatever does not mean that has to be the life that I create from this moment forward. And so in order to move your life in the direction you want it, in order to create the life you want, you get to live in the now and then make decisions in alignment with what you want to create. And that's where people get caught up. Like I had a friend once tell me, like, you're getting caught up in this like new world, new age, and like all that stuff and manifesting. But like here's the thing, guys, like God created us. God spoke things into existence. When God created energy cannot be destroyed, and it cannot be recreated. It is a real thing. The universe, God created the universe. Everything is working in our favor, not against us, because God created it. Everything is in our favor. So when you're living in despair and turmoil and poverty and scarcity and lack and fear, that's not of God. That's of the devil. And it's your job to meet God in the abundance He already put here. God already did His part. He already created everything that we need. He's put people in your life. Every single person that comes across your path is an angel, I believe, sent by God in your path that either you get to be a blessing to, or they get to be a blessing back to you, or whatever. But at the end of the day, we are responsible for our life. So when people think of this new age, I do agree that there's a line that's too far. I agree that there's people who don't give God, Jesus' Father, the credit. But my interpretation of all of this is that everything is in our responsibility. God gives us free will. He gives us free will to create the life that we want to create. And I believe He gives desires on our heart to have us like chase after them. But if we don't do the self-work to get conscious and aware, feel the freaking feels, whatever trauma you had as a child, that's your story. That's your block. That's your test. Nothing is perfect. So you get to overcome that. So anyways, today my message to you is just, where are your emotions blocking your blessings? Where are you guarding your heart? Because another thing that I learned, I'll share this and I'll end on this note. I am really praying that this particular speaker will be a guest in August. So in the Fox Project, every month we have a theme. This month's theme is all about sensuality, sexuality. So if you're not in the Fox Project Inner Circle, hit me up, get involved. It's amazing, and it's only getting better and better as it develops. But this month we're having speakers teach us about sensuality and sexuality. And what I learned today was how when we become present and we feel the feels of, like, so she gave the example of her mom used to always play in her hair. And think of like a girl that's like being sexy and she's like flipping her hair and she's like playing in her hair. And when she was doing it, like she said, her mom would always do that. And just not like in front of a man, not in private, just literally like sitting there like playing in her hair. And she said she would always think of her mom as this sensual, sexual being, like just so like a goddess. And I was like blown away by that, because it's so true. It's like when we feel the feels, when we connect with our body and we become present with ourselves, and we take enough, like she talked about, like your sensuality, your sexuality comes from your senses, your touch, your taste, your feel, all of those things, your smell. So think of why smells make us so happy, like the smell of a man's cologne, or even like I love women's smell almost just as much as I love men's cologne. Like women will walk by me, I'm like, what are you wearing? You smell so good. But like when we can come present enough to experience the senses, that's when we start to tap into our being. And so going back to the money one, because money is the theme for August, I'm hoping that this girl will be one of our guest speakers. But I was on one of her calls and she was teaching about how to manifest your money. And she was saying how one of the pillars of money is all about now I'm like, I went on such a tangent because I started talking about the sexuality girl. But I think what I was going to say was, because now I'm trying to think of her pillars, of which one was I going to tell you guys about. But I think it was about like experiencing it and knowing that God created everything for us. And so one of the things that she was saying was like the number one thing when it comes to money is God. Like if you're in service and you're giving your gifts that God created for you, and you're living in purpose, and then you're trusting and you have faith in God, that's where I believe tithing comes in, and turning to God to be your source for all things. And then it was now I'm not like, you got to be there in August. I know she's going to speak for us, but the top one was God. And so my point was if you're not in abundance, if you're not in overflow, if you're not experiencing life to the fullest, then I believe you're not connected to your being. You're not conscious. You're not living present to the life that God created for you to live. Life is right now. It's not what happened to you yesterday. You get to feel those feels. And so like I see Erica's on, I will never forget this. She gives this advice a lot of times to our friends, and because Erica, you are one of like my most wisest friends, and one that I trust the most in things that happen to me. But one thing that you've said that really resonates with me is like, when you go through trauma, feel the pain, feel the loss, cry. Don't just shove it down and move on. And that's what I've done my whole life. I just numbed myself out. So it was like, not only did I not feel excited and high, but I wouldn't feel low either. Like things were very neutral for me, because I knew how to just block emotions so that I could protect myself. And so you get to feel the feel in the moment. When you feel life in the moment and you feel the pain and you don't avoid it, then it doesn't suppress. It doesn't get locked up in your joints, in your organs, in your energy. It doesn't block you. Oh, that was the thing that I was going to say about the money. She was saying that when you don't love, like, so she used the example forgiveness. And this is so crazy. Like, it's all we get like all weirded out about the universe, but it's all connected. God created the universe. And one of the things she said that when, like, one of the biggest principles I believe God has is love and forgiveness. And she was saying, when you don't forgive somebody, so if somebody does you wrong and you don't forgive them, you're blocking your abundance, because you basically have a blocked energy, a protection energy, where you're not allowing things to come in. So you're blocking love. You're blocking acceptance of things that are naturally going to flow to you. So again, this is why it's like I really am trying to be that bridge between the woo-woo talk and people who are worshiping crystals and the universe, and bridging it to the people who know that God, our creator, Jesus, his Father, created life and abundance for us to experience, but we are blocking it by our own will, by our pride, by our ego, by our unforgiveness, by our hatred, by our judgment. Like our fear, all these emotions that are not of God are blocking our blessings. So we get to feel them. We're naturally going to judge. Going back to the beginning, as I wrap this up, I shared in the beginning, I naturally am not an expressive person. That's unfortunately my 0 to 8. I shut down and I protected myself. So I get to experience emotions and consciously choose to experience them. So if judgment is one of your things, you're going to naturally judge. If you grew up with a mom that was like a helicopter, like I didn't grow up like that. that. My mom wasn't overly helicopterish. I'm not overly helicopterish. So I don't have a lot of fear. I'm not the girl that's like, oh my God, lock your doors, look everywhere. I should be. I'm working on it now because unfortunately we live in a world that we need to be. But I'm not naturally like that. It takes a conscious effort for me to naturally be on edge and more alert and fearful of what could happen. But whatever your thing is, judgment, you might have a judgment mother or father, or you might have a judgy family members. I think most of us do. Then you're going to naturally judge, but you get to recognize that judgment and then check yourself and move forward. If you get to recognize your fear, like, oh my gosh, okay, the fear is not of God, so I'm going to listen to my heart. I'm going to ask God to show me the way, and I'm going to trust him, and I'm going to take a step forward anyways. But so many of us just live in fear our whole life, and we say we're praying, but yet you're not willing to step through fear. Or maybe it's, self-doubt, self-worth. Maybe you were raised not being loved, not being told you're awesome, you're amazing, you're beautiful, you're worthy. So now you have a worthiness conversation. Guess what? Feel that crap. Know that it's not of God. God made you. He made all of us equal, and we get to just recognize this is not of God. This is not of my creator. I am perfect in his image. I do get to have everything my heart desires, and you get to recognize it and then let it go. You don't get to avoid it, or you can, and many people do. But when you do that, you're creating a block, and now you're blocking love. You're blocking abundance. You're blocking all this stuff. So, let me see, because I'm like sitting at a standstill, so I could try to read this a little bit, but I really love that you are working with mentors and open your self-improvement. I have found that people want greatness, but they're not anyone chiseling and polishing. Yes. I am like a junkie to self-development. What is your 0 to 8? So 0 to 8, if you didn't get it, if I didn't re-explain it, it's whatever happened to you between when you were born, even in the womb, from conception to 8 years old, is the way that your perception of the world gets molded. So like I was using the example, if you were raised in poverty, scarcity, lack, then that's your reality. So if you you're going to probably be living in scarcity, poverty, lack as an adult until you clear the blocks of whatever that was in your childhood. Abuse, self-worth, fear, judgment, all the things I just mentioned, whatever your 0 to 8 looked like, then if that in your present world, so they call it like the lottery syndrome, for example. So a lot of people who come and win the lottery, they blow that money because they didn't come from money. So their conscious doesn't match their subconscious, and they don't match, and it blows. So I was explaining how with multiple mentors I've learned from, it's a common thread that if you don't heal your blocks and you don't release that stuff, it will show up in your adulthood. I love you more, Erica, if you're still here. Wow, I need to work on forgiving so that I won't be held back from. Yes. Forgiving is, I believe, it could be one of the hardest things to do, but it's one of the things that God wants us to do the most. So, all right, guys, I'm going to head off, but thanks for being here. And again, every Wednesday at 1:30, I will be here with a new subject of inspiration, something that I'm working on, something I'm learning, or even I'm going to start bringing on some guest speakers to talk with us too. If you're interested in joining the inner circle, please reach out. I don't have it public at the moment because my team is working on like the rebranding of the website and all that, so I'm so excited, and I get to feel the feels right now. Love you, Erica. So I can't wait, but it doesn't mean you can't join. So if you want to join today or yesterday, you can join, but until I actually have it like full blown out, I'm not like talking about it publicly. But in the meantime, I don't want you guys to miss all the goodness that's happening offline, because here's the last thing I'm going to say here. Instagram is tripping right now. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. I'm not only creating magic on Instagram. This is just one area I hang out, but I've got in-person stuff. We've got programs. We have weekly meetups that we're doing. So like get involved in the things that are not just happening when you happen to catch them on Instagram. Make sure you're on the email list so you're up to date with everything that you could be taking advantage of. Because like Sharice said earlier, it's like it's what I said earlier, but to come behind what she said, the way I say it is like, God did his part. God sent his son. He created us. He gave you life in the perfect time that he wanted you to be alive. And now what are you doing with it? That's the bottom line. What are you doing with it? Are you throwing a pity party? Are you being a victim of your circumstance? Or are you saying, you know what? Let me go and get help, because God created other people who went through, there's broke people. There's people who have gone through the most tragic traumas who have come up and raised themselves up on the other side. And that's because they sought out guidance from people. God wants us to not be like my pastor says, you should, and I don't know what he says, but he says like 3 different characters from the Bible. He says that we all need someone above us, someone the same as us, and someone below us. And I don't know the men in the Bible that he refers to, but we all need the people that we're doing life with, the people we're learning from, and the people we're teaching. So if you're doing life by yourself, if you have an ego and pride that thinks you know everything, you should never know everything. You should always have something new to be learning. So you should be surrounding yourself with God's children that are there to pour into you, and you should be open to that, but you should also be giving that away and pouring that back to people. And so this is why when we isolate from our trauma, we don't heal. You heal by giving away and saying, oh my gosh, this is happening to me. Let me help you so that I can help myself. So, all right. Love you guys. Bye.